This is the Onyx Go 6, and we're not sure what's happening. This is running a Carta 1300 screen, one of only a few manufacturers in the game utilizing the latest e-paper technology. It's got 300 ppi, it's crystal clear, an octa-core processor, and an SD card. All sounds great, but coming full circle away from the notes and other e-paper products of the world back to a very small 6-inch unit is a little bit of a culture shock, so to speak, as there are more non-e-readers than e-readers in the industry. So what does the Go 6 have to offer? Let's dive in. We definitely have to look at the build of this unit first and foremost. It is a pretty basic design with, honestly, the bezels are evident of something about 6 to 8 years old. They're pretty thick, all things considered. We've seen thinner bezel body to screen ratios since then. Both sides are clean, and on the top you have a power button with status indicator light built in, and on the bottom you have USB-C, you have a microphone, and an SD card slot, which is very welcomed. The thing is that a lot of manufacturers actually forego SD card slots, but this one gives you one right there. No, there's no SIM or cellular compatibility or capabilities whatsoever. The back is a very nice design. It gives you this low profile hardened rubber almost with a little bit of bounce, and you get this horizontal line stylistically beautifully placed with a Boox logo down below, and it does not have any cert stamps or certification stamps on the unit. It'll be on the inside of the unit when you go to the settings. With purchase, they do give you a case, and the thing is magnetized, so it just snaps in like that. It's extremely easy to use, and there's no learning curve whatsoever. With the case installed, you're looking at 232 grams in your hand. You can flip it over like that. You can take it off and then put this on the scale as is, coming in at 145 grams. So it is extremely lightweight for what it is. Before we get into all the usuals, of course, we're going to look at the UI. This UI is very nice. It's very simplistic, it's very concise, and these elements on the bottom do not change based on where you are. Only the top 90% of the screen changes. If you swipe the top down, you get volume for external speakers only, not onboard, so you're going to have to use Bluetooth. You get your eink center, rotate, feedback, etc. These are all your kind of quick access, your slider bars like so. You also have glow light with temperature control, so you can change it from hot to cold. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth up top, and you can customize things as well. E-ink center, you're going to live and die by this. This is your dark color enhancement, your light color filter, your optimize, your high contrast, and of course all of your modes, normal, speed, A2, and X. We will show you this when we get into the video portion of this device, because news alert, this is not an e-reader, this is actually a tablet posing as an ebook reader. You do have the Play Store, you got calculator, you got clock, you got all these things, and where we are right now is a preset for what you want for your speed modes. For example, you can choose each individual application and what you want it to launch in. The best looking or the worst looking, or the slowest to the fastest. So if I wanted Play Store to launch in speed, you can set that up here. You do have gestures like left and right, swipe, left, right, up and down for volumes and things like that. You can also change the settings to have the navigation at the bottom to display the actual keys themselves instead of the gestures. You can do navigation bars, which I'm old school, I like it like that, but we'll leave it on nav for now. They do have a lot of things in the back end, from firmware update, servers, store settings, user manual, etc. There's going to be no shortage of anything here that you can just change to your liking. Now remember, this is running Carta 1300 as we said at the top of the hour, so it is incredibly clear. The only downside I would say is that the screen's really far away from the surface because there's this massive drop shadow around the bezel. I'm not a huge fan of that. I like my experience to be right close to your face. Once you notice it, it's almost like you can't unsee it, unfortunately. But getting back to this, you got a few more things like power, where you can mitigate the usage when you, a whole bunch of toggles here. You can show the battery value, you can sleep wake with the cover, you can turn the sleep cover function off, etc. Really prolong the battery life of your unit. Of course, if you go to library, you get all of your books. If you go to the store, it'll take you to the store based off the server you choose. You have storage where out of the 32, you only get 21, which is a huge amount allocated just for the system. There's nothing on this. We just cracked this open. We just turned on Wi-Fi right now. We haven't even done an update. That's a ton of storage allocated for the UI elements of the unit alone. You do have Google Play out of the box as well. You do not need to sideload anything. You do not need to turn on Google Framework, enable Google Framework. It just works, which is phenomenal. You just log in, away you go. Finally, this thing right here, which is the floating ball, you can turn it off in the settings. It's really nice though. It kind of gives you those quick access keys. You can do refreshes and stuff like that. So it's kind of handy to have. You can chuck it away in the corner. It doesn't really get in the way, or just turn it off altogether. But all in all, a pretty simplistic and utilitarian UI. Google Play is necessary. It is the necessary application because it leads you to millions of applications. You have games. Yes, this can run games. You have apps. Everything seems a little bit maybe choppy and slow for your liking because you're watching this on a smartphone. You're like, hey, wait, why is that so slow? Well, you would go in here and you would mitigate that by your speed modes. If we go to X mode, for example, thing is going to be pretty lightning quick. You can take advantage of the carousels. You can go into things really quick like Candy Crush, download it, boom, bing, bang, boom, you're done. Looks poor because it is compensating by deteriorating the image to give you a better experience. Yes, you can download all your books. You can download samples like this. Samples will lead you over to downloading Google Play Books, and you can just download applications like this. It throws it on the main home screen. There are millions of apps on here, and because this has Google services, you can do things like Gmail, you can do things like Google Chrome, and there's really no hindrances because it has the latest technology and the latest application with Google certification to be able to run all this. Now you might know that it's not that fast, and the reason is because this isn't supposed to be a spec powerhouse. In fact, this really doesn't have all that much to it. It's got an octa-core processor and it does have 2 gigs of RAM, but we've seen devices many years ago that have had 8 gigs of RAM that are running e-paper, so just take that with a grain of salt. While we're here, let's look at Manga, because there are companies like Onyx and like MeBook, for example, that really promote their units to be able to read manga. And to start things off, we're going to go on normal mode because that looks the best. Again, you get that drop shadow where the screen looks like it's a little bit further away. It almost looks like a sunken screen, but it's not. So the slowdowns are going to be they're going to break your immersion when you're reading because it does have a lot of refresh issues in normal mode. That is what the speed modes are for. So you would want to go at least A2 or speed in order to see things. You don't need to go to X, but it does help. So now you get the page turn animations popping up like that. Now this is a pretty good manga reader because you can hold it in one hand and still function it from head to toe. The only thing you couldn't do basically is to double press these little icons to blow them up, which I really like Google Play Books for that, because not only does it key everything out, it doesn't just zoom it in. That's not a blurrier image than it was before. It's a separate element that they have that you can double tap these text bubbles and they pop out. I love that. They even have some drop shadow kind of line elements to it as well. It's a really nice touch. So this does basically give you all of the solutions of being a manga reader, and it stays true to what a manga truly is because it is black and white. You don't get any of that screen deterioration of it being gray in the background because it's trying to produce black and white on a color unit. And manga are never in color aside from the title page and maybe 1 or 2 of the beginning pages, so it works quite well. How do ebooks perform? Decently. Now, when you use apps like Google Play Books, for example, you're going to get a bunch of page turn animations, much like with the Kindle app, etc. So you're going to have to go into A2 or X mode to really balance that out. But when you do, it's quite usable, honestly. You even get the little drop shadow. Now, you might be wondering, well, I can't really see it. It's too small. Well, that's where the text augmentation comes into place. You can increase your text by however many hundreds of % you wish. And if you're not in a rush and you can deal with a little bit of refresh, you can maybe go into Regal or Speed mode or something like that, in which case it looks phenomenal. This looks really, really good. This is the whitest possible screen you can get into. You're going to have these slowdowns when you turn pages, especially on a device such as this that isn't the fastest on the block, unfortunately. So you're going to have to find kind of a happy medium in between. Depending on the application, you can do long presses. Now, because this isn't running color, you only have a few grades of gray and gradients. So if it is something of concern that you want color, you're probably going to have to go with one of their color units, which they have solutions for as well. You can do text translations and search in book as well. But overall, it works quite nicely as an ebook reader. It's a little bit on the small side. And you might be wondering, well, why would we say that? Because basically every Kindle for the past 15 years has been a 6-inch. Well, the thing is that remember, there are more non-e-readers in the industry than e-readers, and there's more non-6 inches than 6 inches. So all this past half decade coming back to a black and white 6-inch reader is actually a little bit of a shock, because we've seen leaps and strides in the industry while they're focusing on other things like goggles and watches and thermometers and all these different things that are running e-paper, posters, and e-notes most prevalently have taken the spotlight away from ebook readers, that some manufacturers don't even make 6 inches anymore. Which is why when things like this come out of nowhere that have this low speed, this no color, this dropped screen, we're a little bit taken aback, and we're kind of like, well, this is very non-Onyx-y to throttle their specifications so greatly at the expense of trying to make something an e-reader, even though it's not, because it has Google Play and audio and glow lights and you can play games on it. So it's a balancing act with a lot of these manufacturers, but it does read books. When it comes to the store, we always appreciate that Onyx puts a store on their unit, but there's no point. It's not their fault, but all of these books are awful. They're just public domain, royalty-free, free-to-access books. Which doesn't make any sense, because it's not like this is preloaded like a pocketbook. They give you 115 books on board. This is not on board. This is in a store. But every single Onyx is going to give you playbooks, and Google Play Store, which has access to ebooks and manga and audiobooks with toggles. So we never know why they put a store on their unit. And you might say, well, it's because you can get books from it, but you just get books from Playbooks, and everything on the store is going to be on Playbooks. And if there's something you don't need, you can go over to Neo browser, which is their web browser, go to Project Gutenberg and download books, because this has the ability to go online. So although there is a store and it's nice, it doesn't need to be there to any degree. AI is a touchy subject for our viewers. The reason being, North America doesn't care about AI, but mainland China is heavily invested in it. So companies like iFlyTech and iReader and bigme and Onyx, etc., they're all pushing AI. But for the most part, when we do market consensus, no one in North America cares. So what this basically is you can just tell it to do anything. You can say, write me a story, and it'll write you a story. You can say, write me an essay, do my homework, answer this equation, just do anything, and it'll just do it for you. Now, it's a touchy subject because a lot of people are worried about it kind of listening and selling back to you false information, etc., etc. So take it as it is, but we must tell you that this has it on board. It is one of the toggles at the top, AI Assistant. So take that with a precaution if it is something you're worried about. If it's not something you're worried about, it is a nice handy tool to have on board. Something that makes this a very non-Onyx-y device is that it's very, very slow. I just tapped apps and nothing happened. I gotta tap it again and then it does it. I gotta tap settings again and then it does it. This whole thing, before we close this video out, is that it's just so very laggy and slow, and everything you do takes forever. I pressed Playbooks and it shouldn't take 6.5 seconds for the logo to show up, and then it's just endlessly taking all this time to figure out what it needs to do, and it's still not doing it. A lot of the things we've seen around this unit is that it is incredibly laggy and slow, and it is very uncharacteristic of the brand, because Onyx is top 3 fastest in the industry. and we're not really sure what direction they're going with this Go unit. And with that leads us to give the Onyx Boox Go 6 a 7 out of 10. There's just no consistency with the Go line of devices, as it ranges from items that are devoid of features to items that are expensive and items that have speed issues. Basically, every Onyx since the dawn of the dinosaurs have had the highest specs with zero compromise. But with this unit, you're compromising a lot with the overall speed, the fact that a third of your storage gets taken by the operating system, despite the fact that you get an SD card slot, and you get no audio, it's a pretty small battery, and it's just kind of hard to use. This is one of the most non-Onyx devices we have seen, as we've been covering them for over a decade. If you want to grab one of these, details are down below. Thank you to all of our members, thank you to Onyx for sending us this sample, and stay tuned for more videos from goodereader.com.